So this is the third setup video I've made. The first one was in 2017 when I was using the Geo 3.5. Then made a video when I was using the CS2. And then now we're using the Geo4, that thing right there, with a Spire 4 and an HK Army Aerolite. And all three of those videos now with this Geo4 have all been Planet Eclipse guns, right? You'd think that, like, I don't know, I just owned a ton of Planet Eclipse guns throughout the years, but I really haven't. My first Planet Eclipse gun was that Geo 3.5. And for a very long time was using Angels and Bob Long guns. Used the G6R up until I got that Geo 3.5 and liked the Geo 3.5 so much that I've kind of just stuck with Planet Eclipse guns since then. And the main reason I liked that is because of the ergonomics and the reliability. Planet Eclipse released the CS1 that was a replacement to the Geo 3.5, but I didn't really like it. It was a much larger gun. It was really stretched out and just kind of bulky. So I skipped it and then waited until they released the CS2. The CS2 is a little bit smaller, a little bit pared down. They changed the foregrip a little bit and then slimmed down the trigger frame. I liked those changes quite a bit, but I wasn't really a big fan of the foregrip. I kind of found that when I held the foregrip, my hand kind of squeezed out the bottom. So when they released the Geo4 and I found that they went to that old school foregrip that they were using on the CS1, I really liked it. I think that having that little extra like swoop there at the bottom kind of like makes it a little bit easier to hold and kind of adds a little bit more grip. So I think that, I don't know, it just stays in my hand a little bit better than that CS1 or CS2 foregrip does. So I definitely like the ergonomics. I mean, the ergonomics are my biggest thing about this. I really like them. But I didn't like the trigger so much. I mean, you can kind of see how I've changed out the trigger on there to go with the deuce trigger. Adding the deuce trigger just kind of makes the trigger frame a little bit larger feeling. I have big hands, so I really like how the deuce triggers kick out in the front a little bit. And just like a lot of the high-end guns out, the Geo4 has many toolless features. So you can remove the bolt without tools, you can remove this foregrip to take out the batteries, you can take off the eye covers without tools, the grips come off without tools, so it's very easy to take apart. I'm also a big fan of these Planet Eclipse FL barrels. And I'm not like a huge barrel person, right? I think that for the most part, barrels are barrels, right? They're just like glorified tubes of aluminum. So I don't necessarily think like the Planet Eclipse barrel compared to like a die barrel or like the Freak XL. I don't think the FL barrel is going to be that much more accurate, less accurate, considerably quieter or louder. One thing that I really like is the added length. It's only ½ inch longer, so it's actually a 14.5 inch barrel, whereas most of the manufacturers are going to a 14. I just really like that extra ½ inch. I find that that extra length just makes it a little bit easier to like point and aim at stuff. So that's kind of a weird reason to like pick a whole entire gun. But the main reason I'm picking these things is reliability. I mean, at this point, there's nothing else more reliable than these Planet Eclipse guns. With that old school IV core that they've been using for a very long time, these guns are extremely reliable, kick very little, extremely easy on paint, and super air efficient. Nothing else is more reliable. I mean, you could say that maybe the other Planet Eclipse guns like the CS2 or, you know, even the 170R are just as reliable, but there's really nothing else more reliable out there. That's one of the reasons I like them so much. One of the things I think that really gives Planet Eclipse its like, you know, super reliability is the way they design the guns, right? So the bolts are really good, the regulators are good, everything's just functionally reliable. But I also think that just having really good build quality makes them more reliable, right? I mean, these Planet Eclipse guns, no doubt, are built better than everything, right? It's built better than all the die guns, it's built better than the MacDev guns, it's built better than the Empire guns, it's built better than the Luxes. It's built better, right? So all the O-rings are built better, they're more consistent, the parts are more consistent, the parts are polished more consistent, everything's just better about them. And I think that overall attention to detail helps make them just better and more reliable. And hoppers, we're going with the Virtue Spire 4. So for most of this year, actually, and last year, was actually using the Bunker King Control hopper. The Bunker King Control is really just a different version of that Spire 4. So Bunker King is owned by Virtue, and they're just kind of sharing internals inside these things. If you want to watch an entire Bunker King Control video, there's a review right up there. Check it out. So I like these. Both of these hoppers I kind of like. You can kind of see if we take them apart, they're kind of going to come apart very similar too. So they're going to be very similar hoppers. You can see on the inside. The main difference is that this comes with that spring ramp. This has like this cool angle indicator so you can like get better at shooting off the brake and stuff like that. It's kind of handy. This is all like magnetic, so it kind of all just snaps in there really nice. Whereas the Spire 4, you still have some like latches and stuff. You gotta kind of technically clip the thing into place. So maybe it's a little bit nicer that these are magnets. But my biggest complaint about the control is that it's just not as sturdy and it's not as stable. So if we put it on here really quickly, I can kind of demo the main issue that I have with that control. So when it's on here, you can kind of see that like all of that like wonkiness, like it just kind of like feels like it's gonna snap or break off. And if we put the Spire 4 on there, we have to tighten that feed neck up a little bit though, because the feed neck's on the hopper is a little bit different size. So we put it in there and like it moves, but it's just like so much more like stable feeling. It doesn't feel like it's gonna snap off or break or anything like that. I just don't like the way they feel and much prefer that like solid, more put together feel that the Spire 4 has. I also think that like this kind of ring that goes around the outside kind of like helps it feel a little bit more rigid, where these shells kind of feel like looser, and if you like squeeze them, you can even see a gap right there forming. I don't really like that. And I also don't like how the button's on the bottom. So when this is on the gun, oh, I gotta loosen the feed neck again. They actually put the power button on the bottom of the hopper. So it's just hard to reach, right? Because the gun's in place, or the gun's in the way. So the power button's right there, which, you know, you can just reach. I don't think I have batteries in here. No batteries. So it isn't like it's hard to turn on, right? I mean, the button's just right there. But having it just on the rear, like the Spire 4, I really do like. And this has all those cool high-end features that a lot of the other hoppers have, right? You could see it comes apart easy. You can take off that, you know, speed feed really easy. But what I really like is the N-Charge battery. It's a rechargeable battery pack that replaces the AA battery pack. Unfortunately though, they don't come with the Spire 4. You do have to buy them separate. They're $50 normally, but the past few weeks, Virtue's actually had a sale on these things and made them only 30 bucks. It's a pretty good deal. It charges via mini USB, and Virtue says you'll get over 20,000 shots on a charge. I have no idea though. I just charge the thing every time I go out, so I never even get close to that. It does work with other Virtue hoppers, Bunker King hoppers, and all of the die rotors. And tank. And I am using the HK Army Aero Light with the Pro V2 Regulators. And let's take this hopper off. And for me, what's most important on a tank is just how it feels. Because I'm not shooting all that much. So when I go to play, every set we go out, so we play like 2 to 3 games every set, I want to shoot like 5 pods, right? So not all that much. I'm shooting a pod, maybe 2 pods a game. So it's not important to me like getting a huge tank. So even if I get like a 68 4500 on this gun, I'm still gonna be able to shoot like 10 pods. So most tank sizes are gonna work perfectly fine for me. But my favorite tank length or size is definitely these 80s because it's a little bit longer. I like that extra length. The 68's a little bit too compressed and too short for me, so I like the longer feel. It just kind of helps keep my hands and everything a little bit more stable for me. So I like these 80s. These 80s are very, very reminiscent of my old 68. So for a very long time, for like 20 years, everybody was using these 68 4500s. They're a little bit longer and skinnier than the current 68 45s. So that's kind of why I think I like these 80s, right? It's about the same length as that old 68. They're a little bit wider in diameter, which I actually kind of feel when I put it on my shoulder. It just feels a little weird to me because I'm so used to those old skinny 68s. So getting this 80 for sure gets me enough shots. And I like that length. Having that little extra length comparatively to the 68 fits my body and my arms quite a bit better. And then also going with these Pro V2 regulators that say HK Army on the side, but are actually made by Ninja. Ninja for sure make the best tank regulators, whether it's just their standard regs or their Pro V2 regulators. All of the Ninja products are very, very good. And we really haven't seen any variation between Ninja branded regulators and these HK Army regulators. Whether it's the Ninja ones or these HK Army ones, they're all very good. And we really haven't had problems with them. So I like them a lot because of their reliability. So that's my paintball gun setup, guys. Geo4, Spire 4, HK Army Arrow Light, and a few upgrades. We got that infamous trigger on there, that infamous Deuce trigger, and using that HK Army GoPro barrel mount.